My fiancé broke off our engagement because I decided not to take his last name, so I tried to apologize and fix things, but he decided to block me instead, and now I'm not sure if I should try to talk to him again. I have dated Brad for 3 years and been engaged for 1. We are a great couple and do not have many fights or low periods. About 2 years ago, Brad and I were talking about marriage, and he asked if I would take his last name. I said that I would, and that was that. It was not a serious conversation, and that question was certainly not the overall topic of the conversation at the time. Now, I should say I have worked in a small office with 4 other women. There is no one else around, so we have all grown closer together over the last 7 months that I have worked there. We chat about a lot of topics. I will admit that one of these women is somewhat active and vocal. Some of her views I would consider extreme on certain issues. However, they are all great people, and we get along well. I also want to point out that my fiancé Brad is also quite progressive too. The ladies at work, all but one have been married, and I were talking about the last name change. 2 of them had mix-ups and told me the nightmare stories of the bureaucracy they had to deal with. There was some talk about the old-school ideas surrounding name changes and how it is not really expected in today's society. I did some thinking and decided that, given the hassle, the fact that Brad and I have not ever really talked about it, and after giving some thought to wanting to preserve my heritage and connections to my family, I would keep my last name. So I told Brad about it, and we talked a short amount of time about it. He seemed to understand where I was coming from but said he wanted some time to think it over. I told the ladies at work, and they were all telling me to prepare to defend my points. One in particular, Lisa, was very adamant that I should stick to my guns. They were looking up data, and they just were so certain this was not a big deal. Now, I know they do not have any skin in the game, and I took what they said with a grain of salt, but I will begrudgingly admit they got me fired up some. So, as you might imagine, Brad and I had that talk. He pointed out how important it was for him for me to take his last name, and I was prepared with many of the talking points, of which I agreed with, that I should not have to. I will not go into that conversation here because I do not want to misquote. But essentially, he said it was important to him and that he always wanted to share his last name with his wife, and I brought up a lot of counterpoints centered around the hassle, possible divorce, feminism, etc. At the end of this talk, I felt like I had proven my points so much better than he had his. So that brings us to this week. We had to spend a week apart for reasons that are entirely irrelevant to this. But we had a phone call where I was shell-shocked by what happened. He basically said he wants to call off the engagement and break up with me. It was a terrible call, and I was in shock over it that I do not recall it too clearly. 2 days later, we had a text exchange. I really did not think this was a hill to pass away on or a deal breaker. I tried to backtrack and tell him that if it was so important to him, then I would gladly take his last name. I just wanted to be with him. This is what he said: "You had originally agreed to take my last name. You changed your mind, and I feel that it was in large part due to the ladies you work with. Now you are free to change your mind whenever you want. However, I cannot see myself marrying a woman who allows others to influence her so much. You are slowly changing, and this is just the final bullet to that point. I expect my wife to care more about my feelings than those of her coworkers.